I got a lot of speakers. I don't know if we have the tie-in back there. There is, I believe, some amplification in the room that might be good for you. Fantastic. Morning. I've got a lot of speakers. You gonna be all right without it? Or?
Yeah, I think I should be fine.
Gotcha. Thank you. We're running behind, and so are many of you. We'll get it together. It's Kiara with 6, yes? Karina, sorry. Writing too fast this morning. 6. Came up in the back. Apologies that it's 9:20 and we haven't gotten going yet. Thank you for coming out this morning. I'm Danny Wimmer. I'm the Attorney General's press secretary. We will be started shortly in the next, I want to say 6 minutes, but I also wanted to say that about 15 minutes ago. Today we're going to hear from the Attorney General, Senator John Damoose, and Representative Kelly Breen. We're also going to hear from a Michigan anti-trafficking project who will introduce themselves. We will have a hard copy press release or digital. We don't have hard copies in the room. We'll have a digitally distributed press release going out shortly after we conclude here that will have the organizations and name spellings you're going to be looking for. Not that you're scrambling to spell Damoose and Breen. They will be delivering remarks followed by question and answer. Do me a favor, raise your hand. I will call on you. I'll be in one of these corners. I can see the whole room. You don't have to exaggerate it too much for me to see you. I will call on you, and even if I say Liz Nass with Gongwer, I would appreciate if the first thing you said back up here was Liz Nass Gongwer, and then go into your question. Not everybody up here is going to be a familiar face or used to speaking with you, and I just appreciate if they can know who they're talking to. Would appreciate questions kept to today's topic loosely. I understand there's some interest and overlap with legislators and the Attorney General here, but I particularly appreciate if we could start with particularly germane questions to our topic today. I do ask that you just limit yourself to one germane follow-up. I will come back to you, but we want to keep the room moving around this morning. Again, apologies for the delayed start, but I do anticipate I'll be back very shortly with a lot more people with a lot more to say. Thank you.
All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. With me up here today are State Senators John Damoose and Michael Weber, State Representatives Kelly Breen and Carol Glanville, Heather McGannon and Don Connors from the Michigan Anti-Trafficking Project, and Assistant Attorney General and Chair of the Michigan Human Trafficking Commission, Melissa Palipo. Human trafficking is a crime that thrives in the shadows. It is modern-day slavery. Traffickers use force, fraud, and coercion to exploit the most vulnerable among us for profit, leaving scars that last a lifetime. This isn't an epidemic happening in some faraway place. It's happening right here in Michigan, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and in every corner of our state. And no region is immune. Human trafficking can take many forms, including forced labor and sexual exploitation. Labor trafficking is found in places you might not suspect, like convenience stores, nail salons, massage parlors, farms, and restaurants. Those being trafficked often don't even realize they are victims or know how to get help, or they're too scared to get help. This is a global industry generating an estimated $236 billion worldwide each and every year. Since taking office, I've made the fight against human trafficking one of my top priorities. My office has prosecuted more than 40 individuals for trafficking-related offenses. We have trained law enforcement officers, healthcare professionals, school personnel, and victim service providers to recognize the signs of trafficking and intervene when someone is at risk. And we continue to support the Michigan Human Trafficking Commission, chaired by our department's very own Melissa Palipo, which brings together experts from across various disciplines to develop solutions, provide training, and guide policy. And in fact, this evening, the Michigan Human Trafficking Commission is hosting a mixer to bring together the many different organizations working together collectively to combat human trafficking and to help foster stronger connections at a time when critical funding and resources are being cut. And yet, despite all the work, Michigan still receives an F rating from Shared Hope International and the Polaris Project in 2023 for our state's human trafficking statutes. While the Michigan legislature took up measures last year to combat some of these issues and provide better protections for survivors and victims, they fell short of passing much needed legislation. Survivors still face barriers that prevent them from healing, rebuilding, and reclaiming their futures. Too many are charged with crimes they were forced into committing. Too many are left without housing, without employment, and without the protections they need to feel safe. Too many are afraid to come forward because they fear they will be punished rather than protected. Survivors also see their abusers walk away with minimal punishment and go back to continuing their predatory conduct and abuse. The legislation now being introduced is an important and necessary step forward. These bills are about accountability and putting victims first. They are about holding traffickers fully accountable for their crimes and about ensuring that survivors are treated with dignity, understanding, and the true chance to rebuild. We know we cannot end trafficking through prosecution alone. Prevention and victim support must go hand in hand with enforcement. We must ensure that when survivors escape, they have a safe place to turn. We must provide legal protections so they are not re-traumatized by the criminal justice system. And we must educate the public so that everyone, teachers, doctors, business owners, hotel staff, neighbors, can help identify the warning signs and then act upon them. That is why these bills are so very critical. They provide prosecutors the tools they need to strengthen cases against traffickers. They align Michigan's laws with the reality that anyone under the age of 18 involved in commercial sex is by definition a victim, not a criminal. They will ensure that survivors can seek expungement of convictions for crimes they were forced to commit and allow affirmative defenses when trafficking victims are coerced into unlawful acts. They will expand protections for children, giving our courts and child welfare system the authority to intervene when a child is trafficked by their parent or guardian. And they will ensure that survivors are shielded from stigma, even down to the words that we use, replacing prostitution with commercial sex, language that recognizes the reality of coercion instead of blaming the victim. These changes matter. They will save lives, and they send a clear message that in Michigan, we stand with survivors and we will never tolerate trafficking. Now, I want to take a moment to thank the legislators that are here today who have been champions for this bipartisan package of bills. And I want to say to you all, your leadership and your determination to act are absolutely essential to combating human trafficking. Human trafficking will not disappear overnight. It is entrenched, organized, and fueled by billions of dollars, but we can make Michigan a far more safe place for victims and a more dangerous place for traffickers to operate with, of course, the help of this legislation. Now, it's easy for legislators to say they care about combating human trafficking, but they can't claim to support survivors while irrationally cutting the budget of the very department and the jobs of victim advocates, criminal investigators, and trial attorneys who are tasked with fighting it. They cannot claim to want to truly hold traffickers accountable while ignoring this critical legislation. The commitment to combating human trafficking must be reflected in our budget as well as our laws. I also want to remind the public that you have a vital role in this fight. If you are a victim of human trafficking or suspect someone may be a victim, please call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 888-373-7888, or you can text 233-733. This national toll-free hotline is available to answer calls, texts, and chats from anywhere in the country, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year, and all calls are confidential. Resources are also available, including some red flags to help identify human trafficking on my department's website at mi.gov/human trafficking to learn the warning signs. And Michiganders who suspect human trafficking can call 855-MISH-TIP for assistance. Your awareness and your willingness to act can truly save a life. Human trafficking thrives in the shadows, but it cannot survive in the light. And by passing these laws, by educating our communities, by supporting survivors, and by holding traffickers accountable, we can finally shed some light on this crime. Human trafficking will continue to hide among us unless and until we unite in the battle against it. And to ensure that happens in Michigan, we need this legislation to make our state a leader in this fight and to protect survivors. I have advocated for similar legislation time and time again, but I am very hopeful that this will be the year with a bipartisan, bicameral package that we can finally get it across the finish line. No one should ever endure what trafficking survivors have endured, and together we can ensure that Michigan becomes a place where victims can be freed from exploitation, where survivors have the chance to heal, and where traffickers are brought to justice. Together, we can take up the daunting task of working to eradicate human trafficking from our communities. And I want to thank you all for being here. And now I'd like to turn things over to Senator Damoose to discuss the specifics of his legislation.
Thank you, Attorney General. What kind of a world do we live in where we even have to have a press conference like this? Human trafficking is a scourge. There aren't words to describe how sickening it is that so many women, children, and men are literally enslaved by criminals who use one person's lives for their own pleasure or profit. The package of bills we will introduce today are a direct product of a call issued by our Attorney General earlier this year when she expressed doubt as to whether we would ever pass meaningful legislation related to human trafficking. I'm glad the Attorney General shared those concerns. I took them as a challenge. And today's legislation is a step in the right direction to make Michigan the last place on earth anyone would want to be involved in either sex trafficking or labor trafficking. Upon hearing the challenge to toughen our laws, my heart was there, but to be honest, I wasn't sure I really even understood what was happening every day in our culture. I pictured the proverbial white van pulling up and kidnapping someone and forcing them into slavery, which does happen, albeit rarely. The reality of human trafficking is far more insidious. It took several hours of sitting with people from the Attorney General's office, especially Ashley Steffen and Mosa Palapu and Aaron Van Langenfeld, who were so patient with me as they talked about what's really happening here in Michigan and around the country. They spoke of young girls who were coerced online with threats, who wound up being sold for sex to grown men who thought nothing of what they were doing. They spoke of parents brokering their own children for terrible purposes. They gave examples of people literally being used as labor slaves until they paid off a debt that they frankly could never repay because the goalposts kept moving. They talked about illicit massage parlors that are shut down one day only to reopen the next under new ownership, and the women working in them who have literally resigned themselves to their fate in life, losing hope as they are victimized over and over and over again every single day. I hope that the teaching that was provided to me can be shared with everyone in the state, and that's something we should work on. It's shocking to think that this is happening right under our noses. Our bills won't end human trafficking overnight. No piece of legislation is ever that effective. But the challenge I issued in response to the data presented to me was that I wanted to see a package of bills that, if passed, 2 years from now, there will be a significant number of women who will wake up and not be trafficked that day who otherwise would have been trafficked that day. And I think that's what we have in this legislation. I want to highlight one aspect of this package that I'm particularly proud of. We aren't just going after the supply side of the problem, the criminals trafficking women, children, and men. We're going after the demand side too. If you're a person, most often a man, thinking you're just paying someone to have a good time, think again. With these bills, you're facing dramatically increased penalties. Depending on the specific crime, you may be going to prison for the rest of your life if you choose to abuse a minor. That's it. That's what we're doing. That's important because we've often demonized the person being trafficked against their will and given virtually a free pass to those who are just out there to gratify themselves, blissfully unaware that their actions are building an entire illicit economy that enslaves another human being. So thank you to the Attorney General and to your entire team for guiding us towards this legislation that could help end this atrocity here in Michigan. And thank you to my colleagues, especially those in the Senate, Senator Weber, Senator Chang, and Senator Baer, and my counterparts in the House who are taking this very seriously and who represent a broad section of ideas and locations throughout the entire state and thereby make this about as bipartisan an effort as we can get. I pray that the legislature takes up these bills immediately and that it helps make Michigan off limits for anyone and everyone engaged in human trafficking. Now I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Representative Kelly Breen.
Thank you, Senator Damoose. Thank you, Attorney General Dana Nessel, our partners in law enforcement, survivor advocates, colleagues on both sides of the aisle and across in the other chamber. I also would like to congratulate Assistant Attorney General Melissa Palapu for her award and recognitions for her important prosecutorial work and advocacy. This work is personal for me. Less than 10 years ago, a fire in Novi killed 5 undocumented workers, including a teenage boy. The owners were indicted for exploiting undocumented immigrants to benefit their business. Labor trafficking could not be proven. All the witnesses were dead. That tragedy moved me to dig out labor trafficking in our own backyard. I did some work with SOAP, Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution. We did some forums, and when I came to the legislature a few terms ago, this package that we are reintroducing this week is still pending. This horrific practice knows no boundaries. Victims range from infants to the elderly, from small towns to upper class, to suburbia to inner cities. It can happen in clubs, restaurants, rural farms, massage parlors, nail salons, and the house next door. Michigan is no stranger to these crimes. Human trafficking exploits humans for profit. It robs children of their innocence, parents of their peace, and neighborhoods of their safety. It is not only sex crimes, but forced labor and domestic servitude where victims are coerced by threats, fraud, debt bondage, and fear of coming forward. Our current policies and practices, however much good they do, are limited. Survivors are left without support, families are left without justice, and we have a moral responsibility to do better. We need to protect survivors, hold traffickers accountable, and give prosecutors the tools they need to build strong cases without re-victimizing people who have already endured trauma. This bipartisan package does not currently have bill numbers. I do have the bill numbers from last term if anybody needs them. And I'm very happy to partner with my colleagues from across the aisle, as well as the other chamber, making this a truly bipartisan, bicameral effort. Prior legislators, both Republicans and Democrats, have paved the path for these bills. We're grateful for their efforts. It is long past time, though, and we are past delays, and we must make these needed changes that have been lingering for multiple terms. This legislation will give survivors the opportunity to expunge their convictions if they were a direct result of being trafficked. Survivors are often unable to support themselves or their families because their criminal record hinders gainful employment. Moms should be able to volunteer at their child's school. Their exploitation and trauma should not define the rest of their lives. Second, this legislation will give survivors a voice in court by creating an affirmative defense for those charged with crimes they were forced to commit while trafficked. Women that were forced to steal underwear from Target just so they could have clean clothes, or commit a crime commanded by their abuser, or watches that same abuser kills a family pet. A teenage boy must either work in horrific or deadly conditions or face a daily beating by a family member who also holds his documentation and his baby brother hostage. These are stories of people that have been through this horrific ordeal. Unless survivors are willing to testify, prosecutors cannot bring these horrible people to justice. This will ensure our justice system acknowledges the harsh realities of coercion that victims face. Our legislation will protect children from exploitation by strengthening safe harbor protections for minors so that kids are treated as victims, not as offenders. These bills built upon reforms championed by Attorney General Dana Nessel and the prior Attorney General Bill Schuette. They ensure survivor statements can be used in court. By doing so, prosecutors will gain the tools they need to dismantle trafficking networks while keeping survivor safety at the center of every case. This package reflects our values, our proven results from last term. It is a survivor-first, bipartisan path that makes clear that Michigan's justice system will not punish victims for crimes their traffickers force them to commit. I cannot ignore the fact that the proposed House budget set forth by my colleagues across the aisle eliminates funding for the Michigan Human Trafficking Commission and testing for backlogged rape kits and slashes funding and supports for victims of crime. While these negotiations continue, we have an opportunity with these policies, which require no appropriation at all, to tell survivors that we are here to help them and to tell these soulless perpetrators that we will use every measure at our disposal to turn victims into survivors and crush their immoral and horrific enterprise of human suffering to dust. This is government at its best, focused on solutions, rooted in compassion and willingness to work across the aisle. I want to pass this package and make Michigan a safe state for all survivors. I'm now going to hand it over to representatives from the Michigan Anti-Trafficking Project. Dawn Connors. Thank you. I'm Dawn Connors, Executive Director of Michigan Anti-Trafficking Project. We have been so thankful to partner with the Attorney General Office and the Commission and put the mixer together tonight, and we look forward to a lot of you being here this evening. The Michigan Anti-Trafficking Project is inspiring communities to take action against human trafficking and the culture that perpetuates exploitation. We do this through our community groups across the state, through training and education for professionals in different communities, and through grassroots advocacy efforts. We encourage legislature that supports survivors and holds buyers and traffickers accountable. We hope that you'll look into these bills, ask questions, talk to survivors, and join us as we take action to make our state a place that traffickers and buyers are not welcome. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Miss Attorney General Dana Nessel back. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to all of you, to our legislators who care deeply, obviously, about this issue. I had the opportunity to work closely with Representative Breen in the last term, and obviously, as I indicated, we were unable to get these through. But I really appreciate Senator Damoose, contacting me and saying, what can we do this session to make sure that we get these bills across the finish line? And when he said it, he meant it. So I appreciate that, and also to, of course, Senator Weber and Representative Glanville as well. So with that, happy to take questions. Yeah, and human trafficking, like sexual assault and many other crimes, is incredibly underreported. So I don't know that we'll ever know exactly what the numbers are, but you're right. We always are very, very low in the rankings. And I think there's a number of different reasons for that, but I'm going to let our expert, Melissa Palapo, explain to you, why she thinks that Michigan ranks as poorly as it does.
I think the numbers are higher in Michigan. I think when I last checked the numbers, we were ranked 8th worst state in the US for trafficking numbers. I think it's partly because we don't have the best legislation to protect our survivors and to prosecute the criminals. But it's also, Michigan is a travel hub, so there's a lot of people coming to and from Michigan. We also have borders, so I think that's part of the problem as well.
This legislation can make struggles at bipartisan legislation. What do you hope will help?
Well, the fact that we have bipartisan sponsorship and support, I hope. There are so many different issues that I look at, and I don't understand how they are partisan in any way, shape, or form. This is an issue that should unite us all, whether we are Democrats or Republicans or independents or what have you. Everyone should stand united in opposition to human trafficking and understand the real suffering that takes place as a result of us not having the right laws on the books. And the fact that we can do better, and with these laws in place, we will do better. So I think we have some terrific sponsors, and I know they're going to be great advocates for this bill package, and that's oftentimes what's needed, right? You have to have good advocates who are passionate about the issue, who care about the issue, and are determined to convince their colleagues to get it passed. And I'm hopeful that this will be the year that that actually occurs.
Yes, Riley?
Yeah, sure. Melissa, do you want to take that?
Social media is the #1 recruiter for trafficking, quite honestly, and that can be for labor trafficking and for commercial sex trafficking. The problem is that social media is such a open network for anybody to go, and it always grabs the attention of the most vulnerable, right? You have people who are pretending to be friends on social media, and so then they can get somebody to isolate them even further and make them feel comfortable with them, get them to leave a location that is safe to a location that is not safe, make them believe things that are not true. Social media is something I absolutely think we need to be educating our youth on a lot more, including in schools, because that is who is targeted, right? It's the most vulnerable who are targeted. Social media also will have fake job advertisements. So people will believe that they're going to go for an actual job, and that job turns into a labor trafficking situation. So when you look at the numbers regarding recruitment, it's always social media and the internet being the top platform. It's a very dangerous area, quite honestly.
Obviously, we have a lot of different wide rural quality areas. How does this legislation
Honestly, I think that's the great thing about this legislation is that it affects all areas. And I will tell you, I was at a really impactful event. I don't think it was this past summer, but the summer before. Was that when we were in the UP? Yeah. Yeah. We were in the Western UP. We had almost all the counties in the UP represented. And we had people from basically all areas of, the anti-human trafficking task force that was up there. And I can't recall the name of it, but you might know it. And we met with the Lions Club, I know, which was the only time that I saw people that were supporters of the Lions in the UP. Anyway, but, it was made clear to me what the challenges were up in the Upper Peninsula. But what I then recognized were those are the exact same challenges that we face in Detroit, for instance. So, this impacts all areas of the state and all walks of life. And that's what I think is so great about this specific legislation is it helps everyone combat human trafficking no matter where you are regionally. Melissa, do you have anything further you want to say about that?
Human trafficking really just doesn't have any boundaries, and it's really the same whether you're in a rural area or you're in a more urban area. In fact, the cases that I see are often in rural areas, and it's really about educating people on how to recognize trafficking and what to do when you believe that there's trafficking. That will kind of make it so that all of those areas get the attention that they need. But human trafficking, it does not matter whether you're rural or you're urban, it's going to affect you the same, and it affects your communities the same as well.
And we forgot to talk about the suburbs. There's a case that Melissa's handling right now, and where there were 4 different illicit massage parlors that were just in, suburban neighborhoods where you never would have expected that. And here you had women that were literally trapped in these facilities, in these buildings that were being used again for illegal, sex trafficking. And nobody ever came in or out of those places, except for, of course, the people that were utilizing that facility illegally. Those that were soliciting prostitution or commercial sex work. But it can strike anywhere, I guess, is what I've learned throughout the course of the work that we've done here. And again, these laws will apply to all sets of circumstances where we see human trafficking occur. I don't have any thoughts to share about that. Obviously, he has the right to legal counsel, and I know that we have filed our brief in response to the MEDC's effort to stop our office from utilizing our team to review many of the documents that were recovered. And I believe Quentin Messer is doing the same. So we'll see how that plays out. But I feel confident in our ability to be successful in that effort.
House is taking a substantially more, say, adversarial approach to your department than they are offering. You're proposing 30% cut to your department in the budget. And they've also subpoenaed you. I'm curious, are any plans to and how would those budgets, your proposed budget cuts impact the ability to enforce?
Yeah, thanks for that question. First of all, I absolutely will attend the hearing on the 16th, and I don't need a subpoena to do it. I routinely appear before the legislature, whether it's to introduce the work of our office or to talk about our budget. I personally go to both the House and Senate every year. Every year to inform people about what we're doing at the office and how this funding is helping the people of our states. And I'm happy to be there on the 16th. I don't need a subpoena to be there. They could have just asked me, and to talk about the work of our office and to brag about the great work that we're doing. In terms of the budget proposed by the House, deeply, deeply concerning. When you talk about what it means to defund the police, it is that budget proposed by the House. And what's notable to me about it, it's not just the significant reduction in the total amount of funds, which takes us back, I think, to 12 or 14 years ago, but it's reducing in half our general funds, which are utilized to pay for all of our criminal work. So, for instance, we'll be losing 57 special agents. We'll be losing 13 trial prosecutors and 3 appellate criminal prosecutors, and all of our victim advocates except one. All but one. The Department of Attorney General will only be left with 1 victim advocate. And I will tell you this as a longtime prosecutor. Yes, prosecutors are important and special agents are important, but no one is more important than victim advocates if you want to get a case to go all the way through to trial, or even to get a case started in the first place. You need to make sure that you have a trauma-informed and victim-centered approach to crimes like human trafficking, like sexual assault, like domestic violence. And so to strip us of all of those things, it's going to make our work incredibly challenging. But when I say challenging, I think people should know what that means in terms of the kind of work that's going to be impacted. Certainly, our Operation Survivor Justice Initiative, which has been wildly successful and has now been, we've had states around the country come to us to ask us about how we operate this program, because we've been so successful in getting those who have fled the state of Michigan and to bring them back to face justice, to face a courtroom, and to face a jury in their case. So I don't know that we'll be able to continue to operate that particular initiative. Our FORCE team, our organized retail crime unit, again, first in the nation and wildly successful. We've charged over 80 people involving 40 different conspiracies. And this is millions and millions of dollars that now we've recovered. That doesn't even include merchandise and crypto and many other things. I think we've made an impactful difference, and I don't know that we'll be able to sustain that. Certainly, our human trafficking work is going to be impacted significantly. The sexual assault kit initiatives, the SAKI unit, that involved, sexual assault kits and agreements that we had, and we worked in conjunction with Ingham, Kalamazoo, Washtenaw, and Wayne County prosecutors, wildly successful. That's not been funded. What I think people should know, and I hope that people from around the state will hear this, it's not just that we're not going to do what we've been doing, which is to go into counties where they don't have a prosecutor at all and take over all the prosecutions. And we won't be able to do that anymore. We've done it so far for Ontonagon, Luce, Houghton, and Lake counties. We're in Lake County right now. As of October 1st, we will no longer have the staff in order to handle the prosecutions for Lake County. It will be literally like the purge there. They will have no prosecutors in Lake County if this budget actually gets passed, the House budget. The other thing is we won't be able to continue our prosecuting attorney's appellate service. So the AG's office has for many decades now handled all the appellate work out of 56 counties in the state that haven't had the capacity to handle their own appellate work. And we are simply not going to have the staff to do that anymore. So what does that mean? How many counties, well, I said 56, but what counties will they not have appellate services for anymore? Alcona, Alger, Alpena, Antrim, Aranac, Baraga, Berry, Benzie, Branch, Cass, Charlevoix, Sheboygan, Chippewa, Clare, Crawford, Delta, Dickinson, Emmett, Gladwin, Gogebic, Gratiot, Hillsdale, Houghton, Huron, Ionia, Iosca, Iron, Isabella, Kilkaskia, Keweenaw, Lake Leelanau, Luce, Mackinac, Manistee, Mason, Mecosta, Menominee, Misaki, Montcalm, Montmorency, Newaygo, Oceana, Ogama, Ontonagon, Ascoda, Otsego, Presque Isle, Roscommon, St. Joseph, Sanilac, Schoolcraft, Shiawassee, Tuscola, Wexford. We will no longer be handling appellate services for any of those counties. And I would note that I believe all of their representatives were involved with voting to significantly slash our budget. And we told the prosecutors around the state that if we saw significant reductions in our general fund, that we would no longer be able to do that. I don't know if the prosecutors talked to their reps or not, but they should, because it's a really big deal that they're now going to have to hire someone to do their appellate work. And that is challenging work that I think my office does a really great job at. And we'd like to continue it. But again, we have to focus on the things that are mandatory for us, the things that we have a statutory obligation to do. This is a free service that we provide. We don't get money from any of these counties in order to handle their appellate work. We've done it because we want to see consistency in the appellate courts, but we just won't be able to do it any longer with these kinds of cuts. The address confidentiality program. This is an initiative that was set up by the legislature. This was passed by the legislature. We operate it through our office. It's been, again, very successful. And just the last couple of years, so we've been operating for 2 years, we have 459 participants. Those are 459 people that have been able to escape assailants and abusers, but yet this program was defunded to the extent that we won't have anyone to run it anymore. So in effect, we won't really have an address confidentiality program because the House specifically indicated that we won't have the individual who runs that program anymore, who again, is in our victim services division of the office, which is almost being completely dismantled. I could go on and on. There's a lot of other things in our office that are probably going to have to be eliminated in the event that this budget is successful. But I do want to talk about just a couple other things very quickly. One of the things that is in that budget is that we are not going to be able to use SAGs or special assistant AGs who operate on a contingency basis. We got $1.8 billion from our opioid settlement. $1.8 billion that we never could have gotten with the staff in our office alone if we didn't also have those attorneys that were specialists helping us. And yet the House wants to strip us of our ability to use those specialists in those types of cases. Again, just in the last 8 months, our department has saved the state of Michigan $1.8 billion now. We're at $1.8 billion in terms of our lawsuits involving the federal government. But of course, they want to stop our department from being able to bring those federal actions. And I can tell you, when you do a comparison between the states that are involved in those actions and the states that did not join those actions, those other states are losing out on, again, not millions, but billions of dollars that rightfully belongs to that state because it was appropriated by Congress. And that money goes to the state, it goes to public health departments, it goes to MDOT, it goes to the Michigan State Police. The list goes on and on. So, if you are really concerned about ensuring that we have the budget we need for all the things that we do, I think it's important to note for every $1 that goes to the Department of Attorney General in Michigan, we bring $4 back to the state. So it's not a common sense cost-cutting measure to defund our office, because every dollar that you give us, every fewer dollar, or every dollar less will result in less money that we can bring back to consumers in the state, bring back to the state because environmental bad actors in the environmental space have created some sort of a, mess in terms of pollutants. I'm sorry, I know that our senators have to go. Even though you'd love to hear me talk about this, I'm sure, for another hour, but yeah, I understand. I want to thank both of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to your colleagues in the Senate who are sponsoring these with you, and I think you will, and much appreciated. Anyway, it's really disappointing, the House budget, and I'm very, very hopeful that the Senate will stand strong and ensure that that doesn't ultimately become our budget, and that the governor's office also appreciates how important it is for us to have a strong budget here. I do want to say one last thing about it, and that is that if you compare our budget to similarly situated states, meaning states with comparable populations, we already have a budget that is many millions of dollars less and far fewer employees than, again, similarly situated states, even states that have a population that doesn't in any way, shape, or form rival the population that we have here. Generally, they get much more money than we do, and they have far more FTEs. So, I obviously am not enthusiastic about the House budget, and I hope that will not be final.
Thank you for excusing me. About 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have time for a couple more questions. All right, thank you all so very much for joining us today. Many of you have to get the same session and appointment. We did hear extensively from Assistant Attorney General Melissa Powelton at ALEU, Chair of the Michigan Human Trafficking Commission.
Yes. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.